Hello and welcome to another episode of the Coder Career Podcast with me, Cameron Blackwood. If you aren't familiar already, I'm an ex-technical recruiter who is now retrained as a software engineer, and this podcast is an opportunity for me to share my experience from both sides of the table, as well as interview a diverse range of guests who also can share their experience from both sides of the table. Today's guest, Scott Spence, is a former VBA developer who is now retrained as a JavaScript engineer and has had a lot of experience in open source, helping people break into the industry and produce a ton of content himself as well. So he has a great amount of experience to impart and currently works in dev relations, so he's very familiar to this sort of thing. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you have any feedback, please get in touch. Hey Scott, how are you doing? Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey Cameron, I'm good, thank you, and thanks so much for having me on your podcast.
No, it's my pleasure, absolutely. So it was interesting how we were saying before we went live, we actually haven't talked in person before. We've done a lot of sort of chat over like Twitter and LinkedIn and that kind of thing because I think we came to each other's attention back when I was still a recruiter. So rolling back the years a little bit, I remember coming across... When I was recruiting, we had to review candidates' profiles, and this would have been a few years ago, like 4 years ago, I think. And you would review it to make sure there are no spelling mistakes or check the GitHub link was correct. So I checked your GitHub link was correct, and I looked at your profile and I thought there must be an error on GitHub. The amount of contributions you'd made was insane. And so I was like, wow, this guy is super dedicated to open source. So I think we ended up connecting after that and sort of getting in touch before I subsequently learned to code. So Scott, something that I like to do so the listeners can get to know my guest a little bit better is just to go through some quick fire questions about tech and sort of other things as well. So to get things kicked off, it's the classic. What was your first computer?
First computer. So, do you mean like a games console or an actual
The
personal
definition?
computer?
It's a good question because that has been a question on the podcast before, and the definition has now been stretched. It now includes games console too.
I'm sort of giving away my age here, but it was the Atari. I can't remember what it's called. It's an Atari games console, which had like the cartridges. It's like the original Pong game, had the paddles on it and stuff.
Oh, nice.
I can't remember what it was called, but
Is that the 2600?
Yeah.
That would have been mid 80s, late 80s, maybe.
Let's go with that. Atari 2600. Let's see if I can get a quick picture. That's it.
Yeah, because that's one of the most classic ones. That was the first huge hit for a home console, right?
Yeah, and then after that, my dad got an Atari. I can't remember what that was. 520 Atari 520 STE, and the E was important because it had an audio bit on there, so you could like use like programs like Cubase and stuff like that. So that was cool. And I had a friend who had an Atari, and like you'd swap discs for games, and I was like, "How do you open it?" And this is when I discovered the double click on the mouse. It was just such an alien thing to me. It's like I clicked it and nothing happened. He's like, "No, you need to double click it," and I was like, "What do you mean?" So that was when like the double click was like a revelation. It's like, wow. So I wouldn't say I've come far, but I can manage to double click now.
Yeah, that is it's an iconic machine. Those old school Ataris. I've always wanted to try one actually. Never. They have some kind of emulator one here in Edinburgh. They've just opened up a bar where you can play like retro games and stuff. So I've been there once, but I didn't get to try the emulator yet. So that's on my to-do list for sure.
There's quite a big modding community for it as well, where just take the guts out and put like other stuff into it. YouTube, you can find all sorts on YouTube, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, anything you want to learn in life, you can get it on YouTube. And talking of learning and talking of tech in general, what's your favorite place to your favorite tech city in the world?
I can't really think of any I've visited, to be honest. I would really love to go to Japan and visit Japan. When you think of tech and city, I mean, that's like future land, isn't it? You just sort of think of that sort of place. But I don't know. I guess the tech city here in the UK, in London, is quite maturing quite a bit, and there's was it Houndsditch? Not Houndsditch. Shoreditch.
Shoreditch,
All
yeah.
around there is quite a busy tech scene, isn't it? But definitely Japan. I'd want to go to Japan, absolutely.
Yeah,
For my
I'm
favorite
the
tech city.
same. I was targeting to go this year, but obviously, I don't know, some COVID thing happened. It hasn't really been in the news
Yeah,
much, but the borders are shut. Um,
yeah.
what about when you're coding, when you're getting down to a bit of work? What kind of music do you like to listen to, and what was the last sort of thing you played on your streaming platform of choice?
Right. So my streaming platform of choice was Spotify. It's now Deezer for the better sound quality. Um, Last song I played was Dance Together by Molly Collins and Ruth Royal. If you don't know who they are, then you probably won't know anything else about the rest of the music I'm going to talk about. So, a big drum and bass fan, and I used to be a DJ like before I started
Oh, nice.
coding. I could say professional because I got paid for it,
Oh,
and
cool.
I did gigs on the weekends and stuff. So um, yeah, but it doesn't pay anywhere near as much as what tech pays. So I mean, big time DJs you do, but I wasn't in those sort of leagues. So yeah, absolutely drum and bass all the way. Occasionally I listen to no, I mean if I'm working, it's drum and bass. But
Mm,
I like other. I grew up on Motown, um, that sort of music, always like that, and like the Clash, and like the Specials. God, I
mm.
sound old. That sort of music. It just reminds me of my childhood. I don't like reminisce and listen to that music all the time. I'm not one of those people who are just stuck in the past. So I do sort of move along with the music. I'm not sort of listening to music from like the 90s still. But absolutely, it's a great scene. I do love it. And sorry if
Yeah.
I've just alienated everyone who's listening.
No, drum and bass is if you're not a drum and bass fan, then and you code, you need to be a drum and bass fan because it is. I'm certain it's the best genre for coding. So I alternate between that and like 90s rock, more just because I enjoy the music. But drum and bass is like for me, it gets me in the zone, locks me in. I play drum and bass when I'm coding and also whenever I'm playing any kind of racing game. I love to plug in
Yeah,
like
brilliant. Yeah,
I don't know if you play Forza Horizon 4, but they have a dedicated drum and bass station on their radio on the
nice.
whenever you're driving. So that's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed that.
When you're talking about 90s rock, do you know Tenacious D?
Oh yeah, yeah. I know
I quite like listening
Jack
to them
Black's
at one
band.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's very much like a parody of 90s rock, but
yeah,
they're an actual band, aren't they?
yeah.
Which is, I always just found it amusing to listen to that. Just for the lyrics and just how like his like persona in the music is very funny.
It's a very spot on
Yeah,
parody because
yeah,
I mean I love 90s rock, but it can be pretty cheesy sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, and what about we talked about what you're listening to when you're working. What about the best time of day? Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Um, I was an early bird, like I said with my earlier sort of ramble about how I learnt to do web development.
Mm,
Um, I'd always find myself very productive in the morning, but now, I mean, I still get up early and do stuff in the morning. Um, I find myself being productive when I feel productive. I know
yeah.
it just sounds really odd, but if I'm like, right, okay, let's just crack on with this now, which I think is great, because my previous place and my current place, like presenteeism isn't a thing. They're not expecting you to be sat somewhere doing a certain thing for a set amount of hours. So it's just about getting the work done when you can do it, which I think is great. And um, a bit of both, both early bird, afternoon bookworm, late night owl. I don't know. I'm just whenever I can do it is when I do it. But um, in the past, it was always very early morning when I'd sort of knock most of the stuff out. But yeah, just as and when I can do it now is when it
Yeah.
happens, when I'm most
It,
productive.
especially with learning, if you can get into the habit of doing it early in the morning. From what I know about you, I know you did it much more successfully than me in terms of getting up every day. I was much less disciplined from the sounds of things, but whenever I did manage to haul myself out of bed to code, it's very nice to do it when you know there's not going to be any work distractions. And the nature of my job when I was learning to code was I was getting phone calls all the time and that kind of thing. So it was really great to be able to get there and sort of quietly code, because you like these days when you're a more experienced engineer like we are, you know, you can code with a few more distractions going on a little bit, but you need to really focus when you're first learning the concepts. So it's yeah, it's definitely good to do.
Yeah, what I did when I had to do that was I'd leave my phone in another room,
Mm.
and I still have now all of the like notifications turned off on my machine apart from Slack. I am listening at work, honestly, um, but it's just to turn off any distraction, because you know once you're in the flow, and you just get that when you're in the office, you get a tap on the shoulder. You know, that'd be like, you know, like the meme where it's
Mm.
like all the equations going on.
Yeah.
You'd be like, that, this is how this works. And then tap, tap, tap. And all that just go poof. And you'd be like, oh, right. Hi, how can I help? So, yeah, absolutely. Having that time uninterrupted is absolutely essential. So, um, but now, just whenever I can get the time to do it.
Yeah. What about pre the code days? What job did you want when you were a kid?
Uh, a job. I want to be a soldier, like my dad and my brothers. They've all been in the military, and I haven't. It got it got to that point where I was like, well, I can either do this or I could be a DJ. So it's like I'm going to be a DJ, and that's what I did. And I just didn't have any money ever, so I didn't go to. Actually, I didn't go to university. I left school at 16, and just did lots of odd jobs at the time, and just whatever I could do to get by. Um, but I wouldn't change it for the world, because you know that's how I sort of got my initial job as like a filing clerk, you know, a bank, and then you know I just progressed from there. So very much proud of my past, and I wouldn't really change it for anything. But I wanted to be a soldier,
Yeah.
but I changed my mind pretty quickly.
It's one of those things people ask me that they say like, do you regret working in recruitment? And it's like, not for a second. Like, yeah, obviously there were some days I hated working in recruitment because, you know, I have a soul. But like the I
Nearly
I
lost my
like
warden there.
I
Sorry.
yeah I would yeah I would regret I would dislike working on it sometimes, but I'd never regret it for a second, because I wouldn't have had a clue anything. My only exposure to development or computer science was when I was in uni doing my business degree. A couple of my mates were computer science students, and I used to play on their football team because they didn't have enough numbers. So like that was my only exposure to it, and that was what I first learned what JavaScript was. Then I got into technical recruitment, and then I became a coder. So I don't regret it for a second either. And you know, everyone's got a unique path into code, and that's what makes it such a great industry, is because not everyone comes from that sort of cookie cutter computer science background, getting into tech that way, especially not these days with all the amazing platforms out there are to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I shouldn't. Yeah, I mean, obviously because of I'm white, middle aged, so I am sort of already sort of very privileged in the sort of unconscious biases that come with that when
Hmm.
you're looking for a job. I know it's not, you know, it's it's unfortunate, but you know that's why I've always tried to sort of help out anyone else where I can, um, because I know I'm in a very privileged situation. I wouldn't like to say like I just strolled into every job I've ever turned up for, um,
Mm.
because that was always a barrier for me when I would be looking at job specs. Let's say, what do you call them? Job
Yeah,
specs,
job spec. Yeah.
and there'd always be like a minimum of a degree of any kind, just like
Mm.
minimum degree, and that would just immediately turn me off, and I wouldn't pursue that. Um, and I'd always, people would say I'd had like all of these, like on my CV, I'd worked for places like Barclays, Fidelity, Deloitte, all quite big names, and those were because there wasn't an absolute requirement to have a degree. I mean, at Fidelity, we know you've got enough background experience to not need that, and we just want you to do the work. So that was always a barrier, and I think it's disappearing now. I'm not looking, so I don't know what the market's like, but I think for that sort of thing, if you let it become a barrier, then I guess it is, and I did. People now say we just want you to apply, even if you don't meet 30% of the requirements. Just apply and then talk to us. So I'd always find that the nicest interviews I'd have would be where it was just a conversation, rather than the what does call do in the browser in JavaScript. Oh, I've asked you a devilishly fiendish question, and there'd always be that immediately like adversarial sort of thing going on, and that puts people on the back foot. And I don't think that's a good way to do an interview. It's like let's just pick at a thread and see what he knows, rather than like a conversation where it is what do you like doing, what do you find interesting about this sort of thing you've been doing. I always found that those sort of conversations were a lot better than JavaScript. Name all the functions, sort of thing.
Trivia style never works. It's like there's not a final JavaScript exam where you, like in school, you'd sit down and like name everything off. Like it's those kind of like it's a two-way interview process in everything. No matter how people try and make it intimidating, it's a two-way thing. So it's really good if companies do that. And my current employer, Purple Bricks, something that I love that they did was they actually didn't make me do a technical challenge for them. What they wanted me to do was they wanted me to show them a personal project I'd done that I was proud of, and then talk me through my show the code and talk through my process. And they would, and then they'd give constructive feedback. And if there was anything we wanted to pair program on, we'd do that. And it was a great way of getting to know my future colleagues. And it totally like put them ahead of anyone else in my mind during the career search, because I thought, wow, these people first off care about my schedule, and second off are really interested in what I'm doing and how they would work with me.
Yeah. So what you were saying there about having your own personal projects, it's very important to have that. And I know a lot of people, if you've got another job, it's very hard to be able to do that and hold down a full-time job. I know that, but can't stress the importance of just having some sort of presence on any of the like source control management platforms like GitHub, Bitbucket, or GitLab, is to have something where you can say, this is what I've built. Because what you're saying, Cameron, it's great when you get someone to talk about something they're excited about. You can understand and get a feel for that person's enthusiasm for what they're doing. Going back to what I was saying is you can't expect everyone to have that, but it is very important. And if you could just try and get out a couple of projects which just showcase your skill set, then that's a really good thing to have, and a very good thing. For like what you were saying, is they didn't ask you to do a technical interview, you just talk through a project. I've done interviews before, and I thought they've gone really well. And it's like a knowledge exchange, because the people who you're talking to, they were like, "That's an interesting way you've done that. I've not seen that before." And it's a good way to build that initial rapport as well with your could be team members. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and a good way. My kind of final point on that would be it's a good way to decide what project to work on, and a unique one is think, what problem do I face in my day to day that would be useful. If you can't immediately find a fix, then you just code something if it's relatively small scale. Like, for example, I made a secure password generator where it would
I did that too.
Oh, did you do it as well?
I
Ah,
did that
nice,
too.
nice.
I did that too, and I made it hit the have I been pwned API. So if you type in a password, well, what I did it for was my Santander. I'm going to call them out. Santander business banking account. It would have like an 18 character password, and
Mm.
then a 5-digit some other password, and then every time I want to log in, it'd say, "But please pick characters 371 and 12," and I'd be like, and it'd be like
Yeah.
a randomly generated password anyway. So I just did this thing where I could put in a password and pick out each character from it, and go, right, okay, just type them in. And I just expanded on that with the have I been pwned stuff. So you could sort of
Mm.
type in like a password, and it'd say how many times that's appeared in data breaches. So I was quite proud of that, and
Yeah,
it actually
that's really
takes a couple
cool.
of years.
That was on my to-do list actually. Added to have I been pwned. So it's good to know that. Good to know that that you've done that, because all I did was in the end I was a bit lazy. I just put a link in it because I ran out of time. I just put a link to just to enter it and have I been pwned.
Yeah, if you go, hang on, let's see if it's still up. Is it C from P.xyz? Uh, I hope it's still up because I paid for the domain. There you go. Yeah, password character picker, and let's just try password, see if it still works. This password appears in 3,861 breaches. So there you go. I'll show you. Is the repo on here? No, it should be. I'll share that with you so you can take a look. It's in
Yeah, and I'll
React.
pop that in the description for the listeners as well.
It's good. Yeah, it's a nice little project to do. And I might, at the moment, I'm converting everything to SvelteKit, so I might
Mm,
just redo it, make it look a bit nicer because it's
nice.
a bit basic. But absolutely, it's a good project to do. Like you say,
So
anything which is going to scratch an itch.
yeah, definitely. Do you want to give a bit of an introduction about yourself and what drive you to put in those crazy amounts of contributions?
Yeah, sure. So I think for the contributions, first up, um, there's a bit of I need to be transparent on this. So if you actually went in and sort of looked at some of those commits, a lot of the time it was either updating a dependency because, or just some small commits because I mean I still do work like that. I'm very much a commit often sort of person. So I do like a little bit, then I commit it, and then if it's a feature, it goes off into a PR. But a lot of the time, I would thank my GitHub streak to tools like Greenkeeper.io and Renovate, just to keep that streak going. But that wasn't the case when I first started out with like 100 days of code. Um, so, I mean, I'm not sure how much you want to go into that, but at the time, probably when you looked at it then, that was me committing daily to GitHub. It would either be, I think at the time with 100 days code, you had like a little journal, and that would just get you in the habit of committing every day, which was really good. So I think we better sort of quickly talk about 100 days code
Yeah,
before we go any further. It's like a what's the word for it?
it's almost like a club, isn't
Yeah,
it? Like, because I took part on Twitter back in the day.
yeah. So the idea is just to get you coding for an hour a day for 100 days. And the thing is, it didn't really stop at 100 days for me. And I've sort of got into the habit. You could call it a bad habit now because even with like my current work, I still get up early in the morning to do my own sort of stuff. But I would sort of thank Quincy Larson from Free Code Camp and Alex Callaway, who initially came up with it. And that was how I sort of got into open source as well with Ammon Mittel. He made a Twitter bot, and I was like, this is awesome. And I started playing about with that and started contributing to the 100 Days of Code Twitter bot on Twitter. So, yeah, it was all really good, all of that. But that's a really sort of long and rambling description of just that one little bit. So I could go over like my history rather than go off on a sort of tangent straight away.
Yeah,
So
no, I mean, tell us the story. How did you get to the point where you were like this hyper productive open source contributor? And what's the whole story? How did you first get into tech?
so I first got into tech back in around 2001 when I was like an office clerk for like one of the UK banks here, one of the big ones. And I just had to do, it was in a finance department. So it was just stuff like credit card reconciliation, end of the month management information reports, and stuff like that. And I was doing it all manually with Excel and, like, God, I can't remember what they are now. It's been so long, but like, summing up columns and stuff and then putting those into a report and just formatting things in a certain way. And my manager at the time, he was sort of tinkering with VBA, and he sort of got me into like managing some of the scripts. And at the time, I was like, "This is mind blowing." You can like click a button. We'd get like all of the reports from SAP, which is like the accounting system for the bank, and you click a button, you get a CSV, and you'd use that in Excel, and it would just process everything for you. And I was like, "This is awesome." And that was sort of how I first got into it. And I was at the bank for a good 10, 11 years. Um, was I? Yeah, I think I left in 2010. Um, and I sort of caught the attention of one of the, I wouldn't say engineering managers, but the team I was in at the time, were for just streamlining processes in the bank. And it was like a cost neutral team. So like, you know, we weren't on like a bottom line somewhere. It's like, are we getting our money's worth out of these people? Because we helped sort of reduce all the overhead in like our business unit. So I got took on there, and then that was like the next level of like coding, and that was just where it went from messing about in the spreadsheet just to doing all in code. Um, and that was great. I did that for a good, uh, I would say, nearly 12 years. I started contracting after I sort of left there. Well, I had a couple of other jobs doing the same sort of thing. And basically, at the end of it, started contracting because it was in need. You'd be shocked and appalled at the amount of financial institutions which still run off of like Excel. I mean, like the what's the latest one for the pandemic? Everything was in a in a spreadsheet,
Oh
which is
yeah,
essentially a
the
database.
was it the track and trace or the vaccination like centers or something? It was, yeah, and they
Something like that. Yeah,
overspilled, right? It was like the line went over
yeah.
100,000 rows, which is slightly scary. I wonder how long it would take to load that up on a conventional machine, but yeah, that is terrifying to think about.
Yeah, it doesn't bear thinking about. So, yeah, I've got some stories, but obviously I'm not going to tell them on a podcast. Maybe stay in the pub over a few beers. But yeah, it is quite shocking, and it was very much in demand at the time. And then around 2016, everything started moving to the browser with Office 365, right? And I was at a sort of what's the word for it? Not a turning point. There's like a fork in the road, let's say, and I could carry on doing what I was doing, which was very lucrative, and I could have sustained myself for. I could still be doing it now, I guess, or I could go to where everything else was going, which was in the browser, and that's when I started thinking about doing stuff in the browser. My first stop was Python, and trying to do stuff with that, automate the boring stuff, I think was quite a popular Python book at the time. And I started to try and get into that a bit more. And I think I read a post from Quincy Larson, and basically the sort of upshot of it was just bet on JavaScript. I think that's what the title of the post was, just bet on JavaScript, because it is everywhere and in everything, with like Node and everything being on the server, the front end and the back end, covers everything. So I was like, right, okay, let's start doing this. And I started going through the free CodeCamp curriculum, and then I guess everyone's got this sort of story where you start going through it, and then you hit a certain point, and everything sort of either what's the bell curve sort of thing where everything starts to peter out, and that's when
Like
I
sort of
started
the
doing.
diminishing returns, or
Um, was it the Dunning-Kruger effect? It's basically, you have great productivity at the start, then things
oh
sort of
yeah,
level out, and then you're like, oh, was it the pit of despair? It's called, and then you
yeah.
sort of come out the other side. I think I was in the pit of despair when I took up 100 Days of Code, and that just sort of carried me through. And this is while holding down like a full-time job as well. So I was doing a 9 to 5, and then I've got a family, so I couldn't really do stuff in the evening. So it was like getting myself out of bed at silly o'clock in the morning to do, like 3 or 4 hours practice and what I was doing, do a full day's work, come back, have dinner, go to bed, and then do the same sort of thing, rinse and repeat. And that's pretty much what I did from like mid 2016, I think, up until pretty much the end of 2017. And I was contracting at the time, and my contract came to an end. So I was like, right, okay, this is a really good opportunity to sort of start looking for work as a web developer. And one of the most useful things I did at the time was something called Chingu Collabs, and that was I think I did one or two. And Chingu Collabs is where you are with you have cohorts, so like a team of 3 or 4 people, and you all decide to work on a project. We're all remote. I was working with people in Egypt and Romania, I think. Um, and you build a project and you'll work through it with like GitHub issues. I think the project board was a new thing at the time in GitHub as well. So everything would go onto the project board. I nominated myself as a project manager,
Mhm.
so that went on the CV. And we just started working through this project. And at the time, like before I started it, I wasn't feeling very confident at all with sort of my skills and how that would sort of map onto like doing a full-time role. Um, but like when I got part way through it, working with other people, you just learn from each other, and that was the best bit. Just filling in all of the little gaps I had here and there in my knowledge. And at that point, I was like, right, okay, I can start applying for roles now, and I felt comfortable doing that. And obviously, I've got a good 10 years prior experience as a software developer, but it's like totally different to web development. I mean, I felt really comfortable with JavaScript because it was very much like VBO, which is what I used before. Where it's all loosey goosey, it wasn't typed. TypeScript wasn't a thing at the time, I don't think. So I wouldn't say I took to it, quickly. And I think everyone will say that with JavaScript. Everyone is, there's new things to learn all the time with it. But I think I had like enough of a foundation to start looking at other places. And I think I used HackerJob, not Talent.io, and I think I got invited to like a face-to-face, and had my first interview, and it went incredibly. I mean, the interview wasn't great. I didn't think it went very well at all. But they just offered me the role, so I took it. Very happy with it, and that was great. I think I started in March 2018, and that was an agency, government contractor, dealing with digital transformation, um, and they are doing very well for themselves now, I think. But I was the only React guy on the team who was full time, and they did all of their work in Angular, and I'd never touched Angular. And this was at the confusing time of Angular where
Yeah, because there's two completely different versions, isn't there?
yeah, and it was really confusing for me because I think it was in TypeScript, and the way I would sort of debug stuff in like React, I'd just dump out the props into like a console log just so I could see what was going on. And for some reason, you couldn't do that with Angular. It was really hard to have something in the DOM and sort of poke around what was in like any of the props you were passing to it. So that was very much a learning curve. And it was just me as a full-time person. And we had like 2 or 3 contractors, and they were just very focused on what they needed to do. So it was pretty tough. But I think the agency now is gone full React. I don't think they deal with
Okay.
Angular anymore.
A lot of people have moved away from Angular. I've found. I did Angular for about 18 months in a previous role, and we were talking about moving it over to React actually, and it was
Why is that
it's
though?
well, from my side, I mean, I'm not a senior engineer, but from my side, I think Angular is a very powerful framework slash library,
Yeah.
and you can do a lot with it. But a lot of the time, you don't need all of its features, and a lot of the time, React will just do. And React is one of those things that it just if React was to have a tagline for me, it would be "just works." Like it just works out the box, and it's so easy to get up and running once you understand how JSX, or these days TSX, works. Whereas Angular, there's a lot more like putting stuff into modules and that kind of thing. It's much less beginner friendly. It's difficult for me to compare because I learned Angular after I already learned React, but I do feel like I would, as a beginner, it would have been much harder for me to learn Angular than it did React. React was my first sort of library after learning vanilla JavaScript, which maybe shows actually how relatively late I've got into the industry. But yeah, I would say that's why. I mean, I'm sure there'll be people sort of screaming while listening to this, thinking thinking that I'm wrong about Angular in that respect. But yeah, that's why I think.
I always, yeah, so like the CLI where you'd say, I want to make a component, and it would like scaffold out like
Mm,
this folder with like 3 or 4 different files in it. And I was like, I just want to try and get something going quickly.
yeah.
And it's like, no, we don't do that here.
No,
we, we,
it's like
we
that
don't do
meme.
that
We
here.
don't do that here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty tough. So yeah, I mean, um, I I wasn't there long. I was there 6 months. So I mean, that's like a lifetime in tech terms. But um, I, um, I I was offered a job at an ad agency. They do adverts for like like the army adverts you see at the moment, and um, confused.com. I really don't get those adverts, but they do all the stuff for them. And the agency I was with, the part of the agency did all of like the supplementary sites and stuff for them, um, and that was full React. And I went in, met the team leader. He was awesome. The engineering manager was awesome. They're like, come in and start learning with us, and that was awesome. I just learned so much. I was there for like 2 years, and it was just. I mean, you think when you first start, like let's say with free code camp or just learning anything at the time, it's like, wow, this is a lot to take in. And then when you actually start in a job, and then people are sort of doing like loads of other stuff, which you're like, whoa, I haven't seen that before. What's that doing, sort of thing? And you just pick up so much. It's so fantastic when you're in a team and everyone's working together. There's lots of pairing at the time, and just learned so much. This was when you were saying about you learning React because it was the most modern thing at the time. That's when I come in as well. I come in at that time, and I had this discussion with my current manager, um, and I think we're quite spoilt in that regard because
Yeah.
we missed out on things like Bower and Broccoli and Grunt and all those sort of additional task runners. Um, and like Webpack configs and stuff like that. Because when Create React App came along, it just took all that away from you. It was all abstracted away, and it was fine. You could just get on with just coding. But I soon found out that it's not all unicorns and rainbows in the real world. When you get like a legacy project, we had something which is on React 15, and it was all class based, and um, I was very much using functional components, and um, was it React 16.8 where hooks came along?
Yeah, 16. Yeah, yeah, hooks came in there, and that just totally changed React, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and I was so geared into that way of working. When we had to use this legacy project, it was all classes, and I was like, "Can we upgrade it?" And I'm not sure if you've seen that meme where it's got this lump of code where it says, you know, feel welcome to fix it or try to fix it, but just increment the counter at the end so we know how many people have tried. It was that sort of thing. Everyone on the team would try to sort of move this from React 15. They'd have a go and they'd be like, no, we'll just leave it as it is for now. And that's where you sort of learn, like, get your hands dirty with all those sort of bits of a project, which, stuff just gets bolted onto it. If there's not a good like discipline in the team with, how code should be done and things like that, that's when stuff like that starts to break down. But that was great, and it was at that time when I was like, right, okay, anything I was learning, I was writing about in my blog, and was just sharing that stuff out. And it was around that time, around like 2019, well, I decided I wanted to sort of make like educational content to help other people. So I'd always write like content for like the person who was like one or two steps behind me, and I really got a lot out of that. And that's when I started sort of trying to position myself into like developer relations and helping out people online. I was already really involved in Twitter from 100 Days of Code, but just try to help out, self promote in that sort of area, and just sort of try just do that, be an advocate for everyone and everything. And I was lucky enough to be involved with GraphCMS as my current employer. From I wouldn't say from the very beginning. I think they started in 2015. I got involved with it in around 2018 when I was like very much a Gatsby fan. I still like Gatsby, but that was the thing at the time. It was like everything's pre-rendered, everything's fast, and that was what I brought into my team. And I was saying, look, this is great. I think we should use this for everything. It's not the case. You shouldn't use Gatsby for everything. I mean, it is a good tool, but I was very much advocating for that at the time. And GraphCMS, which I'd always try to get into a project if we were working on it at the agency. We didn't, unfortunately. And they were painfully aware of that. When I joined, they're like, "Yeah, we saw you. We had you on a list." I'm like, "Sorry, I'm here now," and I couldn't convert anything for you. But I was very keen on them at the time. So when I actually did get to interviewing and talking to them, it was it felt like, I wouldn't say it felt like I was coming home, but when I did start with them, I did feel very welcomed, and I still feel really supported where I am at the moment. And that's a good thing to talk about as well, is actually like team management. The agency I was at prior had a very good engineering manager, but he was split across so many different disciplines and silos, because they had like a web team, iOS, Android, each with like 4 or 5 people on each team. And then he was split across, like the vertical for bits coming into the business as well. So it was very tough, but a good manager goes a very long way, and I was helped out in a lot of situations with good management.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I was going to say absolutely. I totally agree, and I've always been blessed to have really good managers myself as well, and it's one of those things where the manager is more important than the job in a weird way, and just because of what they can teach you, and if they compare with you a lot and that kind of thing. Like I, particularly in the job I did before my current one, I was able to just absolutely supercharge because my manager had basically he was able to be really hands on. And we also so we would pair up a lot, and I was able to really learn a lot of things really quickly. So a lot of people that listen to this are looking for their first job in tech, and you need to, one of the most important things to ask is how much sort of pairing and learning will I get directly from someone with a lot of experience is a really good really good question to ask.
That was always a big deal. That was always one of the questions I would ask. Yeah, that was always one of the questions I would ask, would be, who am I going to learn from? Also, who am I going to be working with, and what am I going to be making? I think are always really good ones. I
Yeah.
like to know on what 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 it is we're working on together, and I think so. Like the first agency I was with, I didn't really feel that supported, and they were very much focused on just getting the work done, and it sort of left me like feeling a bit, well, I just started looking elsewhere basically, because one, I was using technology I was very uncomfortable with, and I had to learn that as I went. I mean, I did do like stuff in React and Gatsby at the time, and I was like, "This is what we can do with this technology. Look how fast it is!" And they were like, "Well, we need it in Angular." So that was that was tough, and that was basically why I started looking elsewhere, and I was only there for 6 months, and that's why I stayed at the my previous place from where I am now for so long, because I was in a great team. We were always learning off of each other and supporting each other, so that was important, and one of the reasons why I was there so long as well.
Yeah, the learning piece is so important. I had my old boss on the podcast from my recruiter days at Talent.io, John. I think that would be last week's episode on the current schedule, and he was saying, whilst he's not technical himself, having recruited people for 15 years into technical roles, he'd say the time when you know you need to leave a job is when you stop learning, and that's the most critical aspect. And it's like you need to challenge yourself and sort of ask yourself, am I learning in my current role? What am I doing? It's when you coast in technology that you end up getting in trouble and realizing you're behind. You're not rolling with the punches.
Yeah, that's not a nice feeling, is it? Where you
Yeah.
just you don't really feel like you're progressing or learning anything new. That's not a nice position to be in. And I mean, some people are perfectly happy with that. Some people, I mean, going back to like my VBA days as like an analyst developer, there wasn't anything changing in VBA. It hadn't changed for like the 10 years before I started using it. So it was very much a mature and sort of finished product, and everything to doing it, it didn't really change. Whereas like JavaScript has changed. I wouldn't say like dramatically because backwards compatibility, but there's always like these nice additional things, like especially with ES6 when that came along. It's always changing. There's always, if you want to, there's always something new to learn. I know people who HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, they do perfectly well out of that, and those are I call them the holy trinity of web development.
Yeah, I like that.
Because,
I'm going to steal that.
because that is all you need. If you've got a very good solid understanding of those three, then you are good to go. And any any sort of hiring manager who wants to take on a junior would want to know those sort of fundamentals and how well they use them. At the time when I started looking, I was like, right, I must know React. I must know everything there is to know about React. And then there was still like gaps in my knowledge with like HTML and CSS, and I thought I'll just learn them as I go along. But they are that's why they're called fundamental, because they are you need those sort of things to be able to get around sort of trivial stuff in, let's say, React and things like that. So very important.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's usually really overlooked by junior candidates as well. I was definitely the same position as you, where I rushed and said, I need to learn React because it's the most marketable thing. But a lot of the time, hiring managers are just looking for really strong fundamentals. And one that's really overlooked, part two of the Holy Trinity, is CSS. People really rush through it, and actually, it's really, you can get really in depth on it. And unfortunately, I think they're no longer offering it. But on Udacity, there used to be, if they might open up again, the Microsoft sponsored Advanced CSS Concepts course is fantastic. If you think you know CSS, then it's a good one. It's a good one to do.
I've been at it a good 6 years now, and if someone says to me center a div, it's the old trope, isn't it? But I mean, you could use CSS Grid and Flexbox now. It's fine, but it still does sort of strike fear. If I was on a stream and someone said, same thing with forms. I was on a live stream a couple of weeks back now with Eddie Jode, and he said, right, we need to make a form. I just froze. I was like, okay, because. But that's like the bread and butter of web development. It's forms, submitting stuff in a form, and managing it with JavaScript. And it's just things that I can still identify places where I need to improve. And after that, I was like, right, okay, I've got to start doing stuff in forms, and just sort of plow through that again, just to relearn, as it were, because there is stuff which just, if you don't, the I would say it's like it's like muscle memory, isn't it? If you don't do it a lot, then you're going to forget it. Like the same thing when I was saying about VBA. I couldn't tell you anything about that now, to be honest.
That's the analogy I often use as well on the podcast. It's like, it's exactly like weight training or something. Like, you're gonna get weaker over time, and you need to consistently put the hours in. Like a couple of hours per week going over stuff you've already gone over, and going on Free Code Camp or Kadiri or something to that effect, and trying some of the challenges out. Another good way to do it, and something I've been doing recently, I've been mentoring someone in my company who is learning JavaScript at the moment, and it's very challenging because you get asked the question why a lot, and then suddenly it's like, oh, actually, you know what? I don't know why. And then you start, it challenges your whole understanding of the whole thing, and it's really helped me get a grip of my fundamentals by teaching the fundamentals.
Yeah. I always, if I'm doing like a video and like you just do a bit of code, and I like to say, right, we're doing this because we need to XYZ. Excuse me. Rather than just saying that's going to do this for us. So that does help you as well. The best way to learn is to teach, they say. So that's why I like to learn new stuff and sort of share what I've learned. I think it's Sean Wang who said you can learn so much for the price of your ego, I think it was, which is basically, share what you've learned. If people say this is wrong, then that's great. That's another learning opportunity. So I think that's a good way to look at it as well. Same thing with code reviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And people are always polite in code reviews. And to be fair, that's always that's a red flag. We're talking about like warning signs earlier. If people aren't nice in code reviews, that's usually a red flag. And there's a lot of I used to find when I was learning, and for people that are listening, learning to code at the moment, we talked about Twitter earlier, and that's how we both properly got to know each other. And I think. For me, asking Twitter either questions or asking for feedback was great, because one, if it was good, then you got a load of nice feedback, and it's nice to have that sort of confirmed to you. But two, if it needed work, people tended to be pretty polite about it, and would give pointers, and people really take the time out to do that, which is really positive.
Yeah, I like to. I'm not sure if it's the correct way to do it, but I sometimes like to reach out via a DM rather than call someone out publicly and say this doesn't look right, or can you fix this? Because it is hard just like bearing yourself to the world, and then to have someone say, oh, you didn't use this font weight, or you used the headings in the wrong order, or something like that. I think if you just have that as something off the side, where you could just say, I think you could improve it by doing X, Y, and Z, then I don't know. I've always taken that approach where, rather than say something publicly and bring it to the attention of everyone else, I just prefer to say, look, maybe it's to X, Y, and Z, and then see how that goes.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Always better to do it privately if possible.
Yeah. I mean, if it's all positive, then that's great. But you don't want to be the person who says, "Oh, you've used the wrong HTML elements."
Don't be that guy.
Like
yeah.
that. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just prefer to say, look, might be nitpicking, or it might help you out, sort of thing. But
yeah.
I wouldn't want to do it like out in the open.
Fair enough.
But
yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good point. And I mean, I guess we're talking about like openly sharing stuff sort of on Twitter and that kind of thing. open source. For you, obviously, it's a major part of what you do. How can people get stuck into that if they're at a more junior level? Obviously, imposter syndrome is huge. How can people get over that, and how would you encourage them to first take the first steps?
Hacktoberfest is about to start, and I think that was how I sort of first started to get into that sort of thing. Um, at the time, I'm not sure if it's like a good practice. I've seen people doing it this time round as well. Would be there was just like a README where you'd put your name on it, and then you submit a PR with this README, and I think there's still a couple of them going around, and there's ones which look really flashy now, but it's basically just someone's name on a README. But it's a really simple way to do it. You clone that repo. I think the thing is as well, we don't really talk. We don't really talk about Git. It's just a tool we use now, but it was so intimidating for me at the time, and I'd used it like source control providers in my previous role, and I was sort of, I mean, I can't remember what it's called now. Visual Source Safe, I think it was. You had to check stuff out, and that meant no one else could work on it until you check the file back in. So that was not an asynchronous thing like you get with Git. But learning Git it's tough, and like branches and rebases and what's this, and if if there was like a conflict between your local branch and the upstream branch, which would be like, let's say, on GitHub or whatever, that would just throw me into a tailspin. I'd be like, oh my god, what what do I do? And there is really good resources out there, and I started to use the desktop application for GitHub,
Oh, really?
and it got me in trouble quite a lot, um, and I made lots of mess. And I just from looking at Stack Overflow and answers there, um, I just became a lot more comfortable using the terminal rather than like what the other ones, Gitkraken, and I can't think what the other ones are called, but lots of people swear by it now, and I haven't tried it, but it's come a long way, as I understand, and it's really useful. People just use it all the time. You've got all these visual representations of like the branches and stuff, and how things have all gone into like an epic branch, let's say, or just like into one feature. But I learned via the terminal, and I think if there's an issue, and you start searching how to resolve it, 99% of the time you will see it as a command line solution. So that's why I've just always sort of stuck with that. But I guess, I mean, in Visual Studio Code, I use the source control tool side panel in that a lot of the time, just to like check stuff in and add a commit message and stuff. So anything which involves like pushing a branch off, or doing a rebases. First time I learned about a rebase, I was like, what is this? What are we doing? And it's like, well, we're writing over all of your stuff with the stuff which came from the upstream branch. And I was like, oh man. So and it's effectively doing the same work twice. And I was, wow. But yeah, just getting the basics of Git was tough. But wow, that's such a tangent. Hacktoberfest.
Well, I was going to say before, this is an embarrassing one to admit, but I was so scared of Git when I started learning to code that I refused to use it. I used to copy and paste my code, paste it into paste it into GitHub, and just Control C, Control V, and then just hit save.
Well, no, that's fantastic. That's a fantastic way to do it. And if someone wants to get involved in doing anything in open source, I went off a real tangent now. I'm so sorry. If you want to get involved in open source anywhere, a lot of the time there are maintainers who will have like loads of open issues, and there's usually a label where they'd say up for grabs or help wanted. So if you go to like any repository which you have an interest in, doesn't have to be like, you don't have to commit to React or any of like the sort of big open source libraries to be a good Git committerson, let's say. you could help out anywhere. I mean, I had someone submit a typo where I spelt you. I managed to typo you. I think it was like why how do you spell you? YUO or something. And then someone just corrected it for me, and I was like, thank you so much, because I didn't see it and they found it for me. So I just committed it straight away. I said thank you. So it doesn't have to be. You don't have to work on like a monster feature. A lot of the time, you can just go and help out the documentation. I mean, that's what I did a lot of the time. If I found something confusing, or I couldn't, like the quick start wasn't something which sort of worked, and I would say, look, this is how I got it working. Could I, put in a documentation so it's clear if other people to use? You know, people say, yes, please do that. Thank you so much. And, you can go off and you can make your commit, and you could do that. You could make your own fork of it. So like a fork is just like your own copy, like save as. If you put it in like Microsoft Word sort of way of thinking of it, that's what I used to say. It's like you're saying save as, and then you are sort of merging that back into like the original sort of copy, as it were. But that's a great way to do it. Just make your own fork, and then you could edit it in GitHub manually, and just do it that way. So that's a really good way to do it, actually, Cam.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting you to laugh at me, so thank you.
No, that's. I mean, if and like from my earlier sort of ramble about how Git can be very daunting, it is. And there's I'm trying to think of some good explanations out there of how to use it, and I can't remember her name. There was one person who did a really good explanation of how to use it, and it walks you through just making your own sort of commit to your own little repository, and like making a branch, and then making some more changes, and then merging those in. Because Git and GitHub and GitLab and Bitbucket, GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket are based off of Git, which was like another thing for me. Is like, what are all these things? So like Git is the main sort of like engine that say it's all based off of, and then things like GitHub add additional features like pull requests. I think you get them in GitLab as well. I'm not sure about Bitbucket. Yeah, you can do PRs in Bitbucket as
Yeah,
well. So
yeah, Bitbucket you can do
that was
PRs.
also confusing. There was also so many different terms people used for like what seemed to be the same thing. But yeah, I think just if you want to get involved, Hacktoberfest is like tomorrow, starting tomorrow, and there'd be loads of labels which would say Hacktoberfest. So if you just go into like GitHub and then click on the issues link, and then you can filter out on labels for Hacktoberfest. I did well, the person I was working with at the time on this project, it's his project, Paul Scanlon, and it's called MDX Embed, which is basically allows you to embed, like say, tweets or videos in your web page, which uses something called MDX, which is Markdown, JSX in Markdown, which is like React components in Markdown. He did a really good umbrella issue for that. So it's like one big issue with loads of checkboxes on it, and each one of those checkboxes was another issue. And I think he did a great job of just setting this up for Hacktoberfest, and it went really well. And at the time, last year when it happened, I think it's opt-in now. If you want to have your GitHub project to be part of Hacktoberfest, you need to opt in. I'm not sure how that's done. I think it's via a label on your project. But at the time, there was like this YouTuber with a lot of followers who said, "Hey, here's a way to get free swag. Just go off and edit. Just go off and edit like a README and just like make silly little adjustments." So that did cause a lot of commotion, let's say, at the time, with people making not very. So this is the thing. I'm trying to balance this between someone, adding a space on a README, or just doing something like that against someone like literally just saying there's a typo here, or something like that. I don't want to discourage people, but just saying, making a PR for the sake of removing a space or something like that, it can add quite a lot of additional overhead to the maintainer of that project. So always a good way to do it would be to either open up an issue on the repository, or if they have a discussion board, start a new discussion and say, would you like to have me help out with some of the documentation here, or looking at how the wiki is structured, let's say, or something like that, or anything like that. And then you could start a discussion. And if you open an issue, or you open up a discussion on a project on GitHub, that counts towards your green square. So it helps out in that respect as well. But absolutely, I think Hacktoberfest was great for me to get involved in that side of things as well.
Yeah, because you get free T-shirts as well, or a free tree you can plant for contributing to Hacktoberfest. So the things devs will do for a T-shirt, and yeah, you can. It's great to get involved, and obviously as well, if you make contributions to projects, you get it displayed on your GitHub profile as well. I think that's now maybe dependent on the rules of the original projects. I know there was this guy who. He kept adding space bars to the readmes in the documentation for React, and he called himself a React core contributor, which is a bit cheeky but pretty funny. Yeah, so I think they've tightened up the rules around that now.
Yeah, I think if you just reject the PR, it doesn't count towards it. I think that's how it works. I should know because I was on a Twitter Spaces 2 days ago with one of the people who helped set it up from DigitalOcean. I think you just reject the PR and it doesn't count towards your Hacktoberfest contributions. But absolutely, it's a good way to do it. Speak to maintainers and they will more than happily help you out with something if they can, and just be able to guide you through that sort of thing. So yeah.
And I mean, I guess to kind of finalize almost, because I know I've already kept you from your busy schedule a lot.
That's fine. It's fine.
What would you advise? My final two questions are: first off, what have you got to shout out today about like stuff you're working on? But secondly, as well, would be say sort of a 16 to 18-year-old relative came to you and asked you how should I get into tech in 2021? What would you advise them?
So how to get into tech? You don't necessarily have to be a coder. You can help out in other ways. So I'm not sure if you know Sam Sycamore. He works for the dev blogging platform called Hashnode. He helps with their marketing. I think he's still he is like a coder, but he doesn't. He's not got into tech that way. He was just sharing what he was learning, and I think Hashnode reached out to him about a marketing role, I think, and he got into it that way. And he just helps out with the Hashnode community. So you don't always have to be the person who's going to make the multi-million-dollar platform for someone. You can help out in other ways, and that's a good way. But if it is, I want to make websites and stuff like that, I would say just check out Free Code Camp. Free Code Camp covers so much now as well. Actually, they cover data science, and I think they're doing another curriculum as well, but I can't remember what it is.
They have a whole one on Python. I went on it the other day because I hadn't been on it a while. Because I was recommending it to the guy I'm mentoring at work. I can't believe it's free. I mean, obviously it's free because it's in the name, but the value they provide, people would pay tens of thousands for that if it was taught to them. It's unbelievable. And if you haven't checked out already, any listeners, then get on Free Code Camp. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, do it. I mean, that's the best place to start, I would say. I would say it to anyone. Just go check out Free Code Camp. And then Chingu Collabs as well, give them another shout out. Once you think you are in a position to start working with other team members, go check out Chingu Collabs, and they will team you up with, I think it's a team of 4 or 5 people, and you can go make a project together and learn how to use GitHub collaboratively. So that's also a good shout.
That is really cool. I hadn't come across that until our recording today, actually. So that's something that I would recommend, because I get people asking me about it. How to get involved in a project a lot. So that's a really good. That sounds really good, and a really good way to get stuck in, especially if you're not doing a boot camp or something like that.
Yeah, I absolutely owe that to like giving me the confidence to start applying for jobs. So I'd recommend that to anyone.
Mm, mm. And how do you know when you're ready to start applying for jobs? That's a big one that people ask.
I mean, so it's a tough one.
It's $1 million question. Yeah.
It is, yeah. I mean, I just thought after doing the Chingu collabs, I learned so much in such a short amount of time, and I just thought if I start working with other people doing the same thing and learning from them, then I will pick up the stuff as I go along, like any junior would. So I just thought, I can make my own site, I can style it, and I can do basic things in React. So I was like, I'm good to go. And from some of the interviews I had, I was in tears after some of them,
Mm,
after leaving some of them, where it would go through like one or two stages, and it'd be like, no, not even this one. Um, that was the worst as well. We found we're going to have a candidate sort of thing, but um, just you just got to put yourself out there, and I guess you will soon find out from feedback from interviews if people don't think you're ready to be doing that. But yeah, it was tough, and I had like a good 10 years experience as a software developer prior to that, and it was tough for me. So um, it's just getting stuck in, I think, and
yeah.
just trying to do it.
So, yeah, each
That's the way
rejection takes you
commit.
one step closer to the acceptance, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the thing with just development in general. It's just slap in the face, slap in the face, slap in the face, victory, yay! And this is why people. This is why I like to code, and I didn't go into like management positions where I was like doing my VBA stuff. Was that I liked the solving that problem,
Mm,
and having that goosebumps where you've got that thing done, you've been sort of bashing your head against all day. That's why I still want to be an individual contributor rather than someone who's helping out other people, because I still enjoy the buzz of working through something, getting it to do the thing you want it to do. um, but yeah, it, yeah, it's just I don't want to I don't want to sort of turn people away from it, but like you say, it's just something you've got to go through, unfortunately, to and I guess you'll know. Um, I don't want to discourage anyone, but it's it can be a long slog to get to where you want to get to, um, but the you know the prize at the end is worth it, because working with a team, you'll be learning stuff all the time, and that's what I live off of. So it's I think it's well worth it.
yeah,
Another really
absolutely.
long-winded answer. So sorry.
No, it's good detail, mate, and I think people will get a lot of value out of this. So it's really good. And so what are you working on at the moment? I know I know you've always got a few sort of irons in the fire. So what have you got to shout out at the moment that you're working on to promote?
So I've just finished a uh, so on my YouTube channel, I've just finished a SvelteKit crash course. So SvelteKit is it's a JavaScript framework, but it sort of compiles down to vanilla JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, rather than like with React. Let's say you ship a bundle with Svelte, it uses something called Vite, and it will use ESM to load each individual module into the browser, rather than have like a big bundle which you would have like with React or Vue, let's say. So I've just done a crash course on that. It's it assumes the basics of HTML, and JavaScript. I do use Tailwind in it. Unfortunately, I don't go through like the basics of styling. Just use Tailwind. Tailwind's like a utility CSS library where you just add in classes to your elements, and it was just for convenience and to get through the course. It's the longest video I've ever done. It's over an hour long, and that's like personal stuff. For work, I've just done a Jamstack Explorers mission, which is using GraphQL and SvelteKit, and I'm also doing a sorry, I am going on. I'm also doing a workshop at Jamstack Conference, which is the first workshop I've hosted, I think. Maybe it's the second, but it's the first one I've done at Jamstack Conf, so I'm super excited about that. And it's going to be the same thing. We're going to be learning about using GraphQL with SvelteKit. So yeah, loads of a few bits to talk about. Yeah,
and all the links for that will be in the description as well. But yeah, that all sounds really good, and good to see you're still creating so much value in the open source and JavaScript community. So that sounds really awesome.
Excited about all that stuff at the moment. So yeah, super excited about that. What are you working on, Cam? Tell us what you're working on.
Oh, a bit of this, bit of that. Primarily this Coder Careers. So yeah, the podcast, and then the wider ecosystem that's going with it is more under development at the moment. So in the long term, Coder Career will be a hub for jobs in the junior and mid-level jobs in tech, where you can go to get your first or second job, and generally a content hub to break in. So that's mainly what I'm working on, and yeah, other than that, working on a day job, helping people buy and sell houses in the most tech-led way. So that's been a lot of fun as well. We're working on some really awesome tools in TypeScript, React, Next.js, and it's been a lot of fun. So I believe we're hiring as well at Purple Brick, so do check out our vacancies as well.
Sweet.
Yeah, so thanks so much for joining me on the pod today, Scott. I think your experience and enthusiasm for the industry is absolutely awesome. I think people have got a ton of value out of it. So really appreciate your time and taking time out to speak to me today.
Awesome. Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.